Political talk here. And today we're going to be looking at probably the most important races in the 2020 presidential election. And what is that? The Senate election. So at the end of the day, the presidency, it really doesn't matter. I mean, it does have some benefits to it, but the most important thing for each political party is control the both houses of Congress. If you can do that, you can do absolutely anything you want. Pretty much, unless you don't have the presidency. But the Congress is kind of what decides what's going to happen, and they're the ones that call the shots. So let's kind of start, and I'm going to fill in our safe states. So these races are a little bit more interesting than others, and some of these states that you should be likely states maybe, or lean states, for no reason Republicans didn't run a candidate, and for that reason we're having races where we're probably going to see safe margins. So Virginia is one great example. Realistically, Republicans could run someone and have a competitive race, and first of all, they didn't even try. And whoever they're running, if I think they have to run someone, and whoever they're running is pretty much like a unopposed kind of guess, because they're not as big or famous in the state of Virginia. So that state would be in the safe column for the Democratic Party. So now that we have our Democratic safe states, why don't we go and look at our Republican safe states? So honestly, this race is very interesting because there's a lot of Republican states in presidential elections and other elections that in this scenario are not safe. And it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening, and I think those are all our safe states for the Republicans. So we can tell that Republicans are defending a lot more seats. A big majority of the seats that are outstanding are held by Republicans, and therefore Republicans are just defending more seats. So now, let's start by going through the Democratic likely states. At this point, they have states like Colorado, almost the hole in the bag, and states like Arizona. Just these two states are states that have very big Democratic influences, and the Democrats that are running are very popular and they have very good campaigns. John Hickenlooper in Colorado and Mark Kelly in Arizona, and they're going against two unpopular incumbents, Martha McSally in Arizona and Cory in Colorado. And for that reason, these two states are pretty safe for the Democratic Party. They're still going to be within the margin of likely margins, but it's going to be solid. It's expected for a Democrat to win there. And we can say the same thing about these two Rust Belt states. These two states could probably be put also in the lean column, but I would actually put them into the likely column. Here is why. These states have very big Democratic influences. And you have two incumbents that are probably going to win. Minnesota, you have Tina Smith, and in Michigan, you have Gary Peters. And honestly, the opponents are not as notable. I mean, maybe in Michigan, John James can pull something off, but I don't think he's going to be able to win. So that's pretty much almost all of them, but we're also missing a very key state, state of New Hampshire. And just this already puts them at 48 points. And at this point in time, this is looking very good for the Democrats if they just need to pick up 3 seats to win without winning the presidency, and 2 if they win the presidency. So at this point in time, Democrats have a very good Senate map, and yeah. So let's go to a Republican likely state. So I accidentally filled in the state of Alabama. That's actually likely. Doug Jones will do a little better than most Democrats have done statewide because he is the incumbent. But nonetheless, Dummy Tupper will probably win that race easily by around 5 to 10 points. And other places where we could see likely margins, Alaska, I think the state of Kentucky, South Carolina, at this point the state of Texas. So these states are states that are going to narrow up a little bit. I'm gonna just go from west to east. So in the state of Alaska, we have Al Gross, who is running against Dan Sullivan. At this point in time, I mean, Dan Sullivan is a Republican incumbent. It's not unheard of for Democrats to be contested in some of these races, but at the end of the day, it's gonna go probably to Dan Sullivan, and he's gonna win that race. Texas could be a lot closer, but here's the thing. A lot of people are comparing this to a Beto O'Rourke race where he got super close to Ted Cruz. But remember, the candidate that is running in the state of Texas, if I'm correct, it's MJ Higger. She is not the same as Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke was a very big and notable candidate, and he had high levels of charisma, and he was somewhat conservative. Yeah, MJ Hagger has some of the same qualities as Beto O'Rourke, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be the same margin because it's not the same candidate. Kentucky, it could be a lot more closer, but Mitch McConnell, there's like no way he's going to lose his Senate seat, and I mean it's possible, but like at the end of the day, just think about it. It's Mitch McConnell. He could be as unpopular as anyone could be in the country, but his voters do not vote him out. Why? We don't know. But this seat has always been competitive, so at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to that. I already talked about Alabama, so let's go to South Carolina. South Carolina, you have Jamie Harrison and Lindsey Graham. So here what's going to end up happening is that we're going to see it go anywhere from 10 to 15 points to Lindsey Graham, where usually it could have gone by 20 points. But just Jamie Harrison being somewhat of a good candidate for the Democrats and bringing out the African-American vote, that could just bring it down to the likely column. Does that mean that Democrats have a high chance of winning here? Absolutely not. But it is still a chance. So those are all our likely states. And now we're going to move on to our lean states. At this point in time, I feel Democrats are going to start winning races. After these likely states are going to win by tilt margins. They only have one race where I honestly see it going by a lean margin. And that's the state of North Carolina. Cal Cunningham is doing amazing. He's raised a lot of money. And just the fact that Tom Tillis, my bad. Tom Tillis is so unpopular. This just helps out Cal Cunningham. And I think he's going to be able to win by around 1 to 3 points. And that's it for Democratic lean states. Now let's go to our Republican lean states. There's 2 races in Georgia, and both are going to go, I think, by lean margins. The Senate election, the special one, I think it's going to go by lean margins because all Senate elections are a lot closer than a regular election in the state would be. And with a Georgia regular election, John Ossoff is a very good candidate, and he could probably narrow down the margin to around 3 to 5 points, but still not be able to win. These Georgia Senate races, if they ran someone like Stacey Abrams, especially in that open Senate seat, they could have easily won a seat in the state of Georgia. Democrats did not capitalize on that, which they should have, but they didn't. So those 2 races bring up the Republicans up to 47. Other than that, I don't think any race would go to the Republicans by leading margins. I think this Senate election will be fought mostly with the likely and likely states, and then the tilt states are going to decide the election. So what's left? I'm going to tell you right now. Democrats have very good chances of winning in Montana, in Kansas, and Maine. Montana, you have Steve Bullock, who for a long time I think Steve Daines was a little ahead with fundraising and just campaigning and things, but now that Trump is kind of getting unpopular in the state of Montana somewhat, Steve Bullock can just capitalize on that, and especially since he's a popular governor, and he's a conservative governor. And I guess that type of bipartisanship is what some of these voters like. So, for this reason, I think Steve Bullock might narrowly beat out Steve Daines to the Senate seat. In the state of Kansas, you have Barbara Bollier. She is doing great. She was a former Republican, and she could have definitely appealed to the Republican voters. And with the fact that Chris Kobach is extremely unpopular, we could honestly see Barbara Bollier win by around 1 point. And honestly, that's pretty good, considering that Democrats are gaining a lot of movement in Kansas because the Republican Party, they're nominating atrocious candidates, in this case, Chris Kobach. So, for that reason, I put the state of Kansas in the Democratic column. And in the state of Maine, we have Suzanne Collins, who is super unpopular, going against Sarah Gideon. Sarah Gideon has a great chance of winning this race. And honestly, it's all about numbers. A lot of these voters in Maine, they voted for Suzanne Collins because of her popularity. But now, that's gone out the window because she's super unpopular now. So for that reason, Sarah Gideon will probably win that race. Last but not least, we have the state of Iowa. And in this state, I would say that Joni Ernst narrowly beats out Teresa Greenfield. And I think she's going to do that because remember, even in contested scenarios, a Republican has not won a statewide race like in Iowa that's not presidential, and somewhat Democrat, my bad, hasn't won one of these races in quite some time. So for that reason, I would put it in the Joni Ernst column. Anything can change, and actually everything can change. But as of right now, this is what's probably going to happen. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up. Like and subscribe and turn on post notifications and look out for my next premiere. I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.